So, my dear friends, we started with opera, and I tell you why. So, I always explore new realities with Divine Mother, and when I travel out of body, which is really leaving the matrix behind, it's going into these higher realms that we all will be visiting and are visiting. Many of you already are having incredible experiences, and it's just don't worry if you are not having them either, but it's all going to happen anyway. And one thing that I'm not a musician, and I wish I could sing really beautifully. But in higher realms, it's all music, singing, it is sound. It doesn't even have to be just beautiful music. There's also realms of experimentation that I visited. And I always say, if you wonder where Hathors are, to me, they sit around the source itself and they are making crazy sounds. They are experimenting with what sound can create. Very often when you travel out of body, you will get to hear amazing, amazing songs all around you. And the other day I was with Divine Mother, and she always tests our limits. And she's like, open all your channels, open all the meridians. I want to come in fully. And I was thinking, how can I do this? And so she was just saying, just sing, ah. And I was trying so hard to get that right. And I was thinking, I wish I was an opera singer, because as an opera singer, surely you can get that very open and very beautiful. And so let us open up with a crazy when you do your and I see that we have Linda here, who is an opera singer, and so she knows all about the ahs. And Linda told me that when you do that it actually is the loosest sound for your vocal cords, right, Linda? Do I remember that correctly? Divine Mother told me this also relaxes our vagus nerve. It opens all the channels, the meridians. We become an open instrument. Oh my gosh, we have another opera singer, Genevieve. Amazing. And so for the opera singers here among us and all of us with them, let us take a deep inhale in and let your be free. Free all limitations within with your beautiful And it can be a sigh, it can be a loud, whatever you want to be, just be. So let us take an inhale in. And feel the energy in your body. Feel the liberation in the body. Isn't it amazing? Sometimes it's so simple. It always is simple with Divine Mother, by the way. Today is a big day. You can tell for all of us who follow space weather, which we absolutely should. Juliet, I love that you did that for people who had trauma. I mean, I learned this from Divine Mother. It was so simple. Any it can be as a sigh, as a singing sound, low, high, whatever comes out. That's it. She can come in better with the sound. She can come in better with movement. It's simple sounds. But anyway, there's so much music in creation. And again, it's just experimentation with sound. And so we have a lot of sound happening. It's amazing. This is just beautiful. We are liberating humanity. And so what is the liberation from? There's a lot to be said about liberation, but let's take a look at it the way that Divine Mother explained this to us. So when she came to me in 2017, it was a peak experience, of course. And the first thing was this big download from her. And that was what love really is. And that she is that love. And that we maybe have forgotten this magnetic love because it was not really so easily accessible. But because she's back, her magnetic love is back. And so she talks about the magnetic heart. How do we fill up the heart with magnetism? Now, in this world, we have many, many, many forces, many in this world, many actually out of this world, you would say. And it's not really easy to separate. For example, this world is also a world of invisible forces. And from what she showed me from this big journey through time and space and past and the future, visiting it all, it was very clear to me that there were two very specific, well, not actually two, sorry, three very specific moments when something quite radical happened to humanity. And you would call it really a distortion. We can call it a fall, but it's really an injury of the original blueprint. So the first injury that I was able to witness as my own being embodied in these, different bodies through time and space was in Mu. It was very clear, and I always speak about it. That was the first time I met unconsciousness, and I was shocked. And it was many of us here on this beautiful planet, and this beautiful planet also was a higher dimensional planet. So it's not exactly this world as we know it now, but a higher frequency world. And so I remember all of us thriving and having a really wonderful time and just loving Divine Mother and loving all that is. It was very easy. And then unconsciousness came in the form of what seems funny and like a joke these days, but it was white men. And I remember they had red hair the way that I saw them. And so that was the first injury to that loving spirit of humanity. So this unconsciousness obviously spread. It was really vulgar, and it didn't respect anything that actually belongs to that loving nature of Divine Mother. It had no respect for the Divine Feminine, had no respect for this beautiful creation. And this is a really long time ago when many of us actually also lived, really you would say that we also were water beings. So not everyone was living on the surface of the earth, and yet we had what you would call very, very much bodies, And so that was the first time I got to experience this wounding of our sacred hearts. The second time was also very interesting. She took me to the Garden of Eden, and that was really, to me, that's the first-hand experience, direct experience. So I believe that all of it is exactly how it really happened. I don't know the big details of everything, but this is what she showed me. In the Garden of Eden, humanity still was in this very much rainbow body state. Everybody was connected to those two very important sources of rainbow source light. One, source itself, and one, the earth. And the reason for that is that when a being actually is on a planet, the being is part of the planet. Just like in the movie Avatar, Divine Mother actually told me that the movie Avatar itself is not about some other planet. I think they call it Pandora, but it's the earth at the time of Mu. And so that's why I was so interested in watching it, because the beings that you see there and the blue beings, those are in a way the original humans, being part of the earth, being one with the earth, living in harmony with Mother Nature. And then, of course, funny in the movie too, the white man comes in the military presence, and they start abusing, of course, the people, the nature and the natives. And so that I got to experience too. So we were part of the earth and part of course, source, as it always is so. And then this other fragment, I would almost call it like a fragment of another being from other realms. You could say, when I speak about the astral not always being so pretty, so there are beings that are in, you would almost say, higher dimensions, which means they don't have the same physicality like we do. But these beings have their own bodies in the fourth dimension, for example, which makes them higher dimensional than the third dimension. And at the same time, they can be very, and I think the name that I always use for this is nefarious beings. So I saw how these nefarious beings really wanted to have the experience of the human body. And they came in and they plugged into the human body. And so you would say they kind of possess the human being, and they have been with us for, I don't know, millions of years. And so we became used to it, and it seemed like that isn't our nature, but actually it was not at all our true nature. And so today you would say the lower human ego, the lower human identity that we all have, really, unless we go through huge mystical processes, that these beings actually are still part of our psyche in a way that it feels so familiar. It's like, oh, the mind is completely just random. Oh, that's just the human condition. No, that is actually not our true nature. So that was another injury to the human design, the original design. So the next thing that I experienced, and that was again a first-hand experience because I had an embodiment during that time, and many of you, I'm sure, did as well, was an interesting time. I really cannot fully understand when it happened, but everything around me seemed very much like what you would call today maybe the Roman times. So, you know, big festivities and just, let's call it that, festivities, but very much Roman. And again, I cannot fully, I didn't get the memory of the exact time of what it was, but looking around, like sitting in these rooms with others, observing everyone, it felt like the Roman time, but it doesn't mean that it really was, just to describe it. And then in that moment, the planet experienced the loss of her original, natural, organic planetary grid. And I knew it. I internally suddenly knew what just happened. And I looked around, and I describe this experience very often because I think it's really important to all of us to know about all these different falls that we had into more and more and more and more dysfunctional unconsciousness. So it was not, to me, just a single event. It was multitude of events that led to this present condition. So I don't know exactly how it happened, but all I can tell you that it happened, and that the entire planetary grid turned off. And there are many different people who explain it, and they say, some crystals were turned off and who knows what. I really don't know. I just saw that it happened. And when it happened, because you and me, we live in a planetary grid. We are within the planetary grid. And so when the planetary grid is natural, when it is the natural organic planetary grid of the Earth, then we perceive divine truth. We are actually completely aware. But when it got turned off instantaneously, Matthias De Stefano speaks about it too in one of his Gaia shows. And he explains who did it and how they did it. I just don't remember exactly what he said because it's not exactly my experience, but I just know that it happened. And so when it happened, all of us, just like in the story of the Sleeping Beauty, all of us fell asleep without falling asleep. We actually would still say we are awake, walking, talking, speaking, but actually our brain, our nervous system, everything in that moment fell asleep. We lost consciousness. Okay, Lynn, you have to tell us. You please text me, Lynn. I want to know what Cobra is doing. And so we all, that day, we all actually went into amnesia. We forgot. We really forgot. I saw how it, and the brain, I saw the brain structure changed within that split moment. Patricia speaks about it as well. She speaks about the brain structure, how it's diminished, how all the centers became dormant. I think many other people, of course, it really did happen. So we ended up with this split brain that doesn't work well because it became kind of dysfunctional. The nervous system also became fooled by what came next. And what came next really fascinated me because I had no knowledge about anything. My mother showed me all of this. And so she suddenly showing me how the planetary grid that we have now is not the original planetary grid. And she's showing me the distortion. And she even said the planetary grid that we have now is like a TV channel that is being actually televised to all of us through the nervous system. And so it seems like this is our reality. Now think about the movie Matrix. I mean, that movie, it's the revelation of how something is plugged into our nervous system. Think about Yogananda. Think about all the great yogis. What did they teach? Withdraw all life force from all senses. place your attention within the spine. Okay, I have to click on what Lynn is sharing so I can look at it later. Thank you, Lynn. Now, these are bits and pieces of what led to this moment and why this now is liberation of humanity, liberation of planet Earth. I'm not a conspiracist in any way. To me, either Divine Mother says it is so or not. And some of it sounds like conspiracies, actually, but they are divine conspiracies in that case. And so we've had many forces that led to the state that the human is in. And then, of course, we too became participants. And so, like Patricia says, since the fall, we've just been constantly creating more and more and more dysfunction with life force that was not used with love. And so why is this now different? This is different now because we are, number one, being liberated from many, many forces that were not ethical, which is important. But at the same time, we too have to, can I explain what Yogananda said? Yes, the entire teaching of Yogananda. So for example, I practice Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is a process of initiation, actually. So you study for a long time, then you receive initiation, you practice. When you start having some kind of results, you get more initiations. So you can do it through the Self-Realization Fellowship, but also there is another organization, Ananda, that also follows the same path. Exactly the same. It's Yogananda's teachings. But also Sadhguru, when he teaches inner engineering, it's very similar, but not as profound and not as mystical for a certain reason, because, he teaches it in 2 days or 3 days, whereas with Self-Realization Fellowship, you have to study for many years. And so what Yogananda was saying, the practice of Kriya Yoga is you withdraw all life force from your senses and pull your entire life force into the spine and then up to connect with God. And so you stop perceiving this world. So for me, I teach out-of-body travel for a very specific reason. It is part of my mission. And, I went through a lot of training in other times and space and dimensions. But the out-of-body travel that I teach is pretty much the same thing. You move through the spine, you move through the third eye, you chant Om to be in your superconscious self, and then you relax all the physical consciousness. You are relaxing so deeply, not only your muscles, but you have to relax all the 12 systems within your body. You absolutely open up the physicality of your being so that it's like slipping out of a glove. But it's not astral projection. It is actually out of body travel. To me, astral projection is slightly different. And, after all, those people also use the astral body. And to me, we want to use our super conscious body. That's why we actually learn to disconnect from the physicality. Many yogis practice this. Many yogis practice out-of-body travel, and they are, it's documented. They even had like many different names for it. Some of them could stay out for many days. It really depends on, I guess, how advanced the practice is. And so when you do that and you chant Om, you go into your super conscious self that always goes on missions, is able to be of service, and is also receiving important knowledge outside of the matrix. Well, the question, Julie, is, if you stop perceiving this world, why be here? Some of us, let's call it like this. Yogananda always said, we are here for 2 reasons: to clean up the mess, which is, of course, our karmic liability, which means we are transmuting all the life force that we have used in the past, not only as individuals, as collectives. But the second one is always a mission, especially in this lifetime. We are on a mission. Now, this world, it's very misunderstood by so many because it seems so real. And yet, when we, for example, are able to liberate the being and come back, then we have the bigger picture. And to me, this is so amazing. Having the bigger picture is living as our divine self. And then coming back, it's like asking, why would a master being come here and then want to completely disconnect, like Yogananda, right? Why would they want to go in the samadhi if being here is so cool? Yogananda didn't like this world, for example. And I know that's not a secret. He was saying quite rough things about this world because, so many forgot who we truly are. And it didn't only happen through our own doing, but it also happened through the conditions. Sri Kaleshwara didn't like to be here, wanted to get out as quickly as possible. And so, again, it's not about loving this world or not. It's actually about loving Mother Nature, loving life with a capital L. And we can only do it when we understand what that life really is. And then also to understand what it really isn't. And one of the big things that Divine Mother taught me about again and again and again, it was like in 2020, she had a few topics she just kept repeating all the time, was the topic of death and how absolutely misunderstood it is, of course. And so once you are, for example, able to disconnect from all your senses and you withdraw from the body, then of course you realize death really, it never happens. The only thing that happens is that you move into different physicality instantaneously. There is nothing that would even could be called death. I can't even say it. So, and again, once you're out, of course, you're having a great time. And so, so the question is, again, let's bring it back to what really matters. How to love life with capital L. And the only way I believe to truly be able to love life with a capital L is to embody your divine self, which is all the levels of your onion. So you have your physicality, your higher self, your spirit self, of course, your soul self, even your galactic self, which gives you access to galactic consciousness, the consciousness of the galaxy. So, and then of course, the cosmic consciousness. Let's take a look at the creation. And then we'll go into meditation. And today's meditation will be a little different from what we did this morning because, we would be just repeating what we did yesterday at 5 p.m. anyway. And so I thought we should go into the pools to hang out with Divine Mother and to swim in the pools of regeneration. And that is not part of the first course of the interdimensional travel. It is a little bit more advanced. But it's okay because we know how it works. It's the tetrahedrons that will get us into these pools. And it's really fun to get regenerated in the pools with Divine Mother. Let me see the comments here. Yeah, everything will be transmuted. It will be transmuted by fire. We know from, for example, the Hopi people, of course, which is part of my lineage spiritually, they know that this world will be transmuted by fire. But the thing is that it will not be transmuted by physical fire, which would mean complete destruction. It will be transmuted by spiritual fire. And the fire is also within us. And the fire will be burning all that is within us, which needed to be transmuted. We are participating, of course, with the violet flame. But in this lifetime, I really hope that that's the timeline we are choosing, that all unconsciousness is transmuted back into love. And so let's take a quick look just before we go into the pools. Hopefully the pools sound like fun to you guys because they are really amazing. I love doing the pools all the time, because it's just amazing to be able to really, take it into your physicality, right? You always think of yourself as that amazing onion. Let's never forget that we are an onion of a being. And so we have so many beautiful layers, and it's good to explore them all. When I received initiation from SRF, there was just the Self-Realization Fellowship. They come and touch your forehead after you've studied for many years, and they give you transmission through the lineage of Yogananda. I was blown away because I kept seeing into the galaxy. I was like, why am I seeing the galaxy? This was many years ago. But the thing is that, look at it. We are an onion, and the onion actually always, each layer is a body. And so we have many bodies. Now, ideally, we want to be aware of all of them equally. Wouldn't that be amazing to have equal awareness of all? But actually, like I say, is for a lot of humanity, it's the focus is in the first three chakras, which means physical, emotional, and mental, and not exactly balanced, especially the mental one, which then leads to emotional imbalance. And of course, sexuality, so much trauma in this world because of that. And so when we go through the heart is the key. It absolutely is, you know, what is the word? Cultivating this love for life in the heart once a day and then expanding it is really important, to be always in that presence within you. That is a portal that allows everything else to open up. And so it's very magnetic. The heart is magnetic. When you become magnetically loving, when you love life with all your heart, which is really how the quote in the Bible should be, love life with all your heart, then you become magnetic to all the higher realms. Then all of this wants to be online with you. And so you see, as you go up, you get to meet your higher self, your soul, your spirit self. All of those are bodies connected to the larger world. And the larger world is our solar world, soul, that is connected to our galactic world, the galactic chakra that you see, the galaxy, that's consciousness. It's connecting to consciousness within creation. We are connecting into the universe to actually feel the universe within us. And then, of course, we go all the way up, which is the highest level of really expansion and selflessness, is when we become one with cosmos, and then we feel the many universes within us. So that's really our design here, to be one with all, and yet being able to be also very contracted in the human, but to be a loving one, at least, to love life with all our heart. And so this is why we do what we do. We do it so that we end up loving life more, not from the first three chakras, but from the totality of who we are. To me, only then we can truly love life, because then nothing really matters. And that is the big joke, right? Because when you are in your divine self, you are eternal. No, you know exactly, you know it all as your divine self. You can have it all as your divine self. You belong, you are one with source. So again, just what I think, that when Jesus was saying, I and my Father are one, he was simply saying I and the divine self are connected into source, and so we are one. And so this is the oneness that is possible within us. And so we have great energies here working through all of us, of course. This is by design, so that we can expand into loving life, and that is the purpose. So if the human is having, some problems and struggling with the little life, then always step into your divine self and bring solutions, top down, because that's the easiest way to do it. And so we are going to be going into the pools with Divine Mother. Very cool, very cool. I don't have a picture. I don't know from which album it is exactly, but let me see. So it is the one where we start flipping the tetrahedrons to actually create a portal. Let me just quickly screenshot it here for you so that you can see from which one it is. We will be doing that in the future, but I thought today it would be a nice thing to do, since we already did the other one several times. Just a moment so that everybody knows which, in case you have it, so that you know. Sorry, I need to. Here it is. So there are 5 courses, and this is one of them, of the higher ones. I don't know exactly if it's the 3rd or the 4th, but if you have it, you will recognize it. So this one, interdimensional traveling. Okay, part 3. Okay, that's the one. And so I'll stop recording. This gave us a taste of what is to come. I know many of you have already done this work anyway, but in 2 months, we'll be working with the cloak of tetrahedrons. So this also gives us an idea of the magic that's possible. Now you'll see that we'll be working with the tetrahedrons. I recommend getting the Sri Yantra. You know, not many people in this world actually know what the Sri Yantra is, but as mystics, we understand, of course, that this is a two-dimensional diagram of the field of tetrahedrons, the field of creation. And so we want to be centered in source, which is the center of the Sri Yantra. And again, this is actually a very multi-dimensional structure. It's very incredible. So again, why is this so important? This is so important because you are expanding into more of your own being. You are liberating yourself from all those nefarious energies in this world. And there were many, many more. I couldn't even list them all, what happened to humanity. But all of it really was keeping us disconnected from our true self, which is the divine self. And so, as you know, we are now in a new design. We are liberating our own habitual self. The habitual self is the human. And we are liberating to become the embodiment of the divine self. So the embodiment of the divine self is actually very much a path that goes through Christ consciousness, which is within us all. And that Christ consciousness is something we actually encounter when we are connecting with the divine self. And that is actually the presence of all love. The presence of all love is the most important presence to cultivate. And it actually doesn't just happen when we decide to do it, but we can make choices. But eventually it becomes a very mystical experience with Christ. When you embody the Christ, and then you keep going, of course. You keep expanding. But the thing is that all of these practices we do here with Orin, they lead to these very, very mystical initiations. So think about it this way. The more you empty thyself, the more of the true self and the fullness of it with all the layers can come in. And then the old self is gone, because the old self was full of itself. And we want to be only full of the divine self. It's a very different state of being. What can also happen, which really it does happen, is part of this mystical path. You will receive initiations again and again, always higher. And these initiations also lead to the transformation of the brain. So some of the initiations are actually direct transmissions of solar light into the brain structure. And you will know when that happens. Some of you maybe already experienced that. And then the brain stops working in the dysfunctional way and all the fear goes away. Fear actually dissolves. It cannot then exist within you, which also is a state of Christ self. Also what happens is then the right and left hemispheres start working together in oneness, and the spinal cord is initiated too. So it's also incredible. And all of this, to me, was the result of the work with Orin. So the potential within the human being is really like Jesus said, you all are gods. We just haven't fully realized it because we had too many forces working against us. And then we unknowingly started to actually, be kind of imprisoned by many different forces too. So this is true liberation every single day. How to live is the big question to ask every day. Always in love, always in love. If we cannot find a reason to love life, then we are not connected to our divine self. Our divine self is always in love with life, and the divine self also is very, very detached from any human drama. The divine self has never been wounded by anyone. It doesn't need to forgive anyone. It never knows any pain. The divine self is always love. And so when we are one with the divine self, none of these little stories we might have experienced actually exist. They dissolve. And it's pretty incredible when this transformation takes place. And again, I recommend listening, for example, to John St. Julian Baba Wow. What is his last name that he calls himself? He describes it in a very different language, and he uses words like Satan and so on and so on, but also he experienced this big transformation. He starved actually human self. Wanayama, yes. He's great. He's also really great. It's just different language, different explanations. We want to look at it from all the different angles and all the different experiences that people are having on this planet. So it's all pretty incredible. And the final here, let us always remember that in the center of all light, I stand. And in the center of all love and will, I stand. Just a reminder, because it's great. And also when we go to sleep tonight, let's put on maybe the cloak of tetrahedrons, maybe just the tetrahedrons. But again, it shifts us, you know, it liberates us. It gives us access to these higher realms within which we exist. And so we are a better human being. And so it is. So thank you so much. Tomorrow, same time, same place. We're going to be doing 11 a.m. and then 5 p.m. I'll post it on the website, and I keep posting the replays on the YouTube. So also those are posted. So thank you so much. So many blessings.